The world's richest company wasn't Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, or even Saudi Aramco. What if I told you the most valuable company in history wasn't a tech giant from Silicon Valley, but a 400-year-old shipping company born right here in Southeast Asia? At its peak, it was worth over $8 trillion in today's money. It all started with a taste. 400 years ago, the global economy wasn't driven by oil, microchips, or data. It was driven by something you can find in your kitchen cabinet: spices. But these weren't just flavorings. They were the technology of their time. Nutmeg, mace, and cloves, grown only in a tiny cluster of islands in what is now Indonesia, the Maluku Islands, were worth more than their weight in gold. Why? Because they were a matter of life and death. In a world without refrigeration, spices were the only way to preserve food. They were also the foundation of medicine and a potent symbol of wealth and power. To control the spice trade was to control the world. European powers were desperate to cut out the middlemen in Venice and the Ottoman Empire, who marked up prices by over 3,000%. This wasn't just about trade. It was about securing the ultimate economic arbitrage. The Portuguese and Spanish tried first, sailing into the unknown. But their state-funded model was slow and bureaucratic. The world was ready for a new player, one that was faster, more innovative, and infinitely more ruthless. A new business model was needed, one that could finance impossibly risky voyages across the world and manage a global supply chain. The world was about to witness the birth of a new kind of power, a corporate entity with the ambition of an empire. Before we reveal its name, let's talk numbers, because the numbers behind this company are staggering. At its absolute peak, its value eclipsed an estimated $8.2 trillion in today's money. Let's put that into perspective. That's more than the market caps of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta combined. It is, without a doubt, the most valuable company in human history. But this was no ordinary company. It was a state within a state. It was the first company in history to issue stock to the public, effectively creating the world's first stock exchange. It paid its shareholders an average dividend of 18% per year for almost 200 years. Yet, this company had powers that would make a modern CEO blush. It commanded a private army of over 10,000 soldiers. It operated a fleet of 150 merchant ships and 40 warships. It had the legal authority from its government to wage war, imprison and execute convicts, negotiate treaties, mint its own currency, and establish colonies. It was the ultimate monopoly, created for one purpose: to dominate a single commodity chain originating from one place on Earth, Southeast Asia. It had a board of directors, quarterly dividends, and a global supply chain. But it didn't have a modern name you'd recognize. So, what was this corporate leviathan called? Its name was the Verenigde Oostindische Compagnie. To the English, it was known as the Dutch East India Company, but to the world, it would become known by three simple letters: V-O-C. Founded in 1602, the VOC was a revolutionary fusion of capital and state power. It wasn't owned by the government, it was owned by the people, the first publicly traded multinational corporation. This structure allowed it to raise enormous amounts of cash and take risks on a scale never seen before. And the heart of its global empire was not in Amsterdam, but right here in Southeast Asia. From its heavily fortified headquarters in Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, the VOC projected its power across the region. It established a violent, corporate-enforced monopoly over the spice trade. This wealth was not created peacefully. The VOC's methods were brutal. To secure their nutmeg monopoly, they systematically depopulated the Banda Islands, killing or enslaving nearly the entire local population of 15,000 people to replace them with Dutch planters and slave labor. This was not just trade, it was corporate colonialism in its most extreme form, where profit margins were calculated in human lives. The VOC eventually collapsed under its own weight and corruption in 1799, but it left behind a blueprint for the modern corporation that has been copied for centuries. What, then, is its true legacy for Southeast Asia today? The legacy of the VOC is a double-edged sword. On one hand, its innovations, from publicly traded shares to limited liability, laid the foundation for modern capitalism. The global financial system we live in today carries the DNA of the VOC. But for Southeast Asia, its legacy was one of exploitation, resource extraction, and the beginning of 350 years of colonialism. The region was not a partner, it was a resource to be plundered. Fast forward to today. The ghost of the VOC's model, global supply chains centered on Southeast Asia, is back, but with a powerful twist. As the world diversifies from China, trillions of dollars are once again flowing into the region. But this time, it's not for spices, but for microchips, electric vehicles, and digital services. And this time, ASEAN nations are not passive colonies. They are sovereign players with immense strategic leverage. ASEAN is now playing a new game with new rules, attracting investment from all sides. But as this new wave of capital floods the region, is Southeast Asia destined to repeat the old patterns of dependence? Or can it forge a truly independent economic future? The story of the VOC is a stark reminder of how a hunger for a single resource can reshape the world and create immense wealth for a select few. It was a corporation that became an empire, built on a revolutionary business model and unimaginable brutality. It proves that for centuries, Southeast Asia has been a critical pivot point in the global economy. But the lesson for today is not in how the VOC operated, but in how the world has changed. Southeast Asia is no longer just a source of raw materials. It is a hub of advanced manufacturing, a hotbed of digital innovation, and a massive consumer market of nearly 700 million people in its own right. The flow of capital is no longer a one-way street of extraction. It's a complex web of mutual investment and growth. The story of the VOC isn't just history, it's a prologue. And the next, far more exciting chapter is being written right here, right now. And we'll be here to analyze every single page at Sea Insider Stories. We'll keep breaking down the data, the deals, and the dynamics of this region.